Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling something absolutely critical, but honestly, something that gets overlooked way too often: inclusive emergency evacuation planning. If you manage a facility, lead HR, or handle safety in any way, what we're about to cover isn't just a best practice, it is literally essential for making sure every single person gets out safely when seconds count.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll look at the unexpected emergency, legal and moral obligations, 3 evacuation strategies, GEPs and PEEPs, and finally, evacuation equipment solutions. Let's jump right into Section 1, the unexpected emergency. Because the simple truth is, nobody ever wakes up expecting a disaster to strike their workplace.
So, ask yourself this right now. How prepared are you, really? If the alarms went off this very second, are you 100% confident that every single individual in your facility has a safe, immediate way out?
In our current climate of extreme weather, fires, and security threats, chaos is pretty much the default. The problem is, standard evacuation procedures often fall dangerously short. Why? Because they rely heavily on able-bodied people moving quickly down stairwells. But consider this. The CDC estimates that up to 1 in 4 adults in the U.S. live with some type of disability. That's a huge portion of the population. So what about staff or visitors with physical limitations, sensory disabilities, or folks who just can't move that fast?
Historically, standard procedures told people with disabilities to just shelter in place on a stairwell landing and wait for first responders. Imagine, just for a moment, you or a member of your family being left behind in a burning building just to wait. No way, right? Relying on sheltering in place is simply no longer acceptable. Your facility absolutely must have the capacity to move everyone to safety immediately.
Which brings us directly to Section 2, legal and moral obligations. This isn't just about doing the right thing, though that's huge. It's also about following the law.
The legal reality here is undeniable. Federal agencies, local governments, and safety organizations mandate strict compliance. We're talking about the ADA Title II and III, prohibiting discrimination, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, NFPA 101 outlining the need for emergency stair travel devices, U.S. Access Board and IBC compliance, and even local laws like Maryland's House Bill 1061. Basically, the law strictly requires reasonable accommodations and compliant egress for everyone, students, staff, and visitors alike.
So, how do you actually comply with all of that? Well, you need a proactive, 360-degree approach. And here is the absolute key. You must involve people with disabilities in the planning process itself. Actually, scratch that. It's more than a key, it's a necessity. You simply cannot plan effectively for a functional need without understanding the reality of that need firsthand.
Moving right along to Section 3, 3 evacuation strategies. Let's explore the primary strategies you can actually implement.
You generally have 3 operational choices here. First up is simultaneous. This is best for smaller buildings where everyone just immediately escapes outside to total safety in the open air. Then there's horizontal or progressive evacuation. This is used in complex places like hospitals, where you move people away from the danger behind 30-minute fire-resistant walls. Finally, we have delayed evacuation. This is for when specific physical or medical conditions prevent immediate movement, meaning people remain in protected refuges until the danger passes or preparation is complete. But take note, delayed evacuation isn't just leaving someone out in a hallway. It requires heavily detailed planning and structurally protected refuge rooms.
This need for dedicated planning leads us perfectly into Section 4, GEPs and PEPs. These are the specific blueprints for your building's populations.
Now, you really need to understand the difference between these 2 blueprints. The cheaper, or generic emergency evacuation plan, is kind of your catch-all. It's designed for visitors with restricted mobility who just don't know your building's layout, and it relies heavily on visible procedures and general staff training. On the flip side, the PEEP, or Personal Emergency Evacuation Plan, is highly customized. It's built around a person-centered risk assessment for specific staff members, and it details exactly what assistance they need, how it's going to happen, and exactly who will provide it.
When you're crafting a PEEP, you have to account for all types of restrictions, whether they're physical, mental, learning, or age-related. And remember, an impairment can be totally temporary, like a staff member with a broken leg. The biggest takeaway here, a PEEP is a living document. It has to be practiced and reviewed regularly, especially after a drill, to ensure it actually works in real life when it really matters.
Now we arrive at the final piece of the puzzle. Section 5, Evacuation Equipment Solutions. Because let's face it, all these strategies and plans are pretty much useless if you don't have the physical tools to execute them safely when the elevators are grounded.
When it comes to the premier solutions on the market, you generally have two main options. You've got the stairway evacuation chair, specifically the Evac Plus chair, which is designed for smooth stairway descent. And then you have the evacuation sled, which serves a different yet equally vital purpose for non-ambulant individuals. Let's break down what each of these can do.
Let's start with the evacuation chair. The absolute standout feature here is single-user operation. This is a real game changer. The operator doesn't have to do any heavy lifting, which prevents manual handling injuries during a high-stress evacuation. It provides a universal stairway descent solution. These chairs just glide effortlessly downstairs and fold away discreetly on wall mounts so they're ready but totally out of the way. They also cater to varying needs with standard capacities of 400 pounds up to 500-pound bariatric models, and there are even battery-powered and two-person models available.
Then there's the evacuation sled. This is your critical solution for non-ambulant people, bedridden patients, or really anyone unable to sit in a chair. Sleds are incredibly versatile. They can accommodate everyone from children all the way up to adults who are 6'6". Plus, they're lightweight, easily stored in closets or hung on hooks, making them absolutely ideal for hospitals, schools, or standard offices. Because, a mobility-impaired visitor could be in literally any building when disaster strikes.
But having the equipment is really only part of the compliance equation. As noted by the U.S. Access Board, it is absolutely vital that emergency stair travel devices are located exactly where they will not obstruct the required means of egress. Your life-saving tools cannot become a tripping hazard or a roadblock for the rest of the evacuating population. Placement is literally everything. Finally, let's talk implementation. Like we said, equipment is useless without practice. Best practices say you should be conducting regular fire drills at least twice a year. Crucially, you need to select and train dedicated Evac Plus chair operators. Don't just rely on fire wardens, who are usually bogged down with a million other duties during an emergency. And during these drills, actually practice with the physical evacuation equipment. Don't just simulate it. Make sure you're testing your fire alarms and smoke detectors weekly too. And always review your performance afterward and revise the plan. So, we've covered the moral imperatives, the legal requirements, the planning frameworks, and the physical equipment needed to save lives. Which leaves me with one final provocative question for you. If an emergency happened right now, today, would everyone in your facility make it out safely? If you cannot confidently answer yes for every single person, including those with access and functional needs, then it is absolutely time to urgently reassess your evacuation protocols. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and please stay safe out there.